G'day, mate. How are we?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well, thank you. Thank you for joining me tonight. How are you doing in your neck of the woods this evening or this morning? It kind of looks like over there.
Yeah, it's 11:40. So yeah,
Eh,
getting it. I'm good, man. I'm good. Thank you.
No, well, mate, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today. And I can't believe, like, I interviewed you a couple of years ago about coming down and supporting, and now you're back for a headline tour. That's wild so quickly as well. Like, kind of, what's the energy like in the band getting back down this way?
Yeah, we're super excited. I mean, we love this all after. When was it? 2023 we
Yeah,
came down. Or
23, 23.
2023. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we really enjoyed it last time. We've been itching to come over to headline, but obviously you have to time it right. We don't want to come back too early. So yeah, we're all really really excited to come back.
And what can the fans expect for you this time in a headline spot as opposed to a support slot? With a support slot, I guess there's a little bit of a we've got something to prove to the bands that to the fans that came here for the headliner versus this is our show, this is our control, these are our people.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a challenge with support slots. I mean, mainly because your set is shorter, so it's 30, 40 minutes generally. And to try and span, nearly 20 years of a back catalogue in 30 minutes is pretty tough. Some people really like the new stuff, people only want to hear old stuff. Obviously, you have stuff that you personally like playing, and goes down well live as well. I think when you got a headline slot and you can play it an hour-ish, you have a bit more freedom to kind of cover more of the band's history. So I think that's what we're looking forward to most. We're dipping into the old stuff a little bit more, playing some new stuff, etc.
Yeah, awesome. Because you guys are known for like how intense the live show is as well. So it's going to be good to kind of flesh that whole thing out as well. And you're coming at a good time of year because that pick can get a bit intense, and it's the middle of winter here. Do you need to? Are you right?
Yeah, second.
Yeah, go for
Sorry.
it.
So sorry.
All good, mate. All good.
I'll give you an extra 5 minutes. I'm sorry, mate.
No,
Thank you.
no, no, you're right, brother. You're right. I get the same half the time I'll start an interview hearing the cats snoring at the door.
Yeah.
No, but well, what I was going to say, anyways, you guys are known kind of for how intense and hardcore the live shows are. How is it playing a show like that? Because you've tasted it. You've tasted it. You've come all the way down to Australia, especially you behind the kit. How do you keep
Hmm.
the energy up? Because that jet lag has got to kind of kick you in the ass, or is it the show that really lifts you?
I'll be honest. Like the last tour we did in Australia, it was one of the toughest tours we've ever done. I mean, it was only short. It was just under a week, but it felt like a month because the jet lag is brutal. Like it really really is. Um, so yeah, it's tough. I mean, you've got to try and stay as mentally and physically fit as you can. I think that obviously helps. But yeah, you're right. It's the energy of the crowd that gets you through it.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. We're lucky enough that we've played like a variety of shows over the past few years. We've done some amazing tours with like Lorna and Cannibal Corpse, etc. We've played massive venues and arenas and stuff. But for me, nothing beats that kind of energy an intimate show where it's like 300, 400 people. There's no barrier. It's
Yeah.
hot. It's sweaty. Then you don't really care about any like little mistakes that you might make during the set or whatever. You just lose yourself in the show, and for me, that's what it's about, really.
Yeah, no, and I 100% agree. Look, imperfections are what make us human. So it's always good. I've seen a couple of bands live, like big shows where there's no fault to the point you sit there going, is it just mimed at this point? Like you don't really know what's going on. So you kind of like you appreciate those little things, maybe a guitar string broke here or, you missed a cymbal here. So it is a good thing as well. But speaking of the last tour down here and just touring in general, how's it been over the last couple of years since COVID getting back out on the road? Are you finding, because I personally am as well, fans are more energetic and wanting to go to the shows more, that when they're at the show, they're just into it a lot more. I feel people have thrown that kind of stagnant complacency out the window a little bit and are really kind of just going gung ho.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely a line in the sand with COVID
Mm.
from before the pandemic and afterwards. Almost immediately when we went back to America, the first tour we did back was a tour with Fit for an Autopsy,
Oh,
and it went from like shows being like maybe half sold out on like tours to like nearly every single tour that we've done since COVID is had like multiple sellout shows. Like I'd say even like more than half of the shows. Some full tours have been sold out. Um, and people just can't get enough of it. You know,
Yeah.
people are buying so much merch now. You know, it's in a really, really healthy place. And I can't put my finger on it. I don't know what it was about the pandemic that just created that kind of that difference for people for shows. I don't know what it is exactly. In the beginning, you're like, well, people are excited,
Yeah.
but you know, but we're 5 years on now,
Yeah.
and it's still in a really, really healthy position. And it seems like metal in general is far more accessible than it ever has been.
Yeah.
Like there's like extreme bands now, like who are like so extreme that it's almost ridiculous. And they've got like kids coming to the shows of like 15, 16, being like, yeah, this is my first concert. You're like, this is your first metal concert. I know this is my first concert ever. You're like, what the fuck is going on?
I
It's
don't know.
mad.
I know what you mean. I went and saw Lorna Shaw at the beginning of the year, and the amount of young people who would go out on the street and be like, "I expect you at a Panic at the Disco or a Fallout Boy concert, not this type of gig here." It's kind of wild and that's the crazy thing. And I wanted to ask you because you've been in the scene for so long, and you've seen dips and ups and downs. There's been clean vocals out of deathcore and extreme music. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I feel over the last 2 years in particular, it's getting heavier. Whitechapel and Shadow of Intent, they're all putting out the heaviest stuff they've done in years, and yet it's even more popular than what it was before. There's no commercial kind of aspect to be like, oh, we need to do this, we need to do this to kind of reach a new audience. It's like, now if we just get out there, like you guys are doing as well, and be as disgustingly heavy, break it down, breakneck kind of mosh pit breakdowns, and
Yeah.
people are just flooding to it. Have you tried to make sense of why this is blowing up, or are you just enjoying the ride?
Well, I think yeah, we're enjoying the ride for sure. I think people are pissed off in general. I think
Yeah.
the whole kind of like society in general and the political landscape across the whole world, really. I think people are at a point where they're just fucking annoyed with life in general. Without getting like too much into kind of like, the politics of everything, but people can't buy houses anymore. They can barely like live day by day, the cost of living, etc., etc. So I think people, it's an outlet for people, and that kind of ties hand in hand with extreme music in a certain sense. Um, but I also think that with people who are fans of extreme music or have been for a long time, I've had this conversation with Sean, our guitarist, recently, where we've been talking about like kind of the direction we want to go. Because we did the same thing as what you were saying. We tried to take a few risks here and there and be like, well, maybe if we add a few different flavors, to this song or to this album, whatever, then maybe it'll commercially be a bit better for us,
Yeah.
in the long run. Maybe we don't have to do something so extreme anymore and kind of break our necks every single night, and if it's not really working. But what we come to realize is that the analogy that I came up with was it's like you've been selling pizza for the best part of 15 years,
Mm.
and you've got a really amazing pizza restaurant. People keep coming to your restaurant. They're like, yeah, this pizza's amazing. And then one day you sell kebabs, and they're like, yeah, the kebabs are good, but I came here for the fucking pizza. And it's like, and I like both things. Everyone likes kebabs and pizza, but I want the pizza. That's what I came here for. And I feel like that about slam. It's like,
Yeah.
we've kind of evolved from a slam band into, well, we were never like a true slam band, but we were kind of a brutal death metal band that had modern production, really. That's
Yeah.
kind of the ethos of the band in the early days. We always had slam elements. I mean, we kind of diluted them a little bit over time as we got older. But we've had this conversation where people wanted to come to listen to Ingested for brutal slam.
Yeah.
So why don't we just give them what they're asking for? So that's kind of where we're at. So you'll probably hear an extreme heavy album from us next as well.
I was about to say that's probably what's going to be next on the down the
Yeah.
pipeline. And how's it been like slotting Josh into the slot? Because I know you guys have known him for a long time now. Coming, how do you feel he's kind of stepped up as a new frontman?
Yeah, he's fitted in really well. Obviously, there's always a teething period. He was kind of thrown in the deep end a little bit. He's gone from a band that hasn't done many big shows and big tours into a fully operating band.
Yeah.
There was a few shows where it took him a little bit of time to kind of stamp his authority on the role, but it didn't take him that long. It really didn't. Like, I mean, he did a couple of shows in the UK around Christmas, and then we went straight out to Portugal. We did one show in Portugal, and the difference between the Christmas shows in Portugal was just a month apart, and it was night and day. And I was like, yeah, he's gonna fit this role really well. And we did the aborted tour in the US. And he was a fucking animal on stage. And
Yeah.
you could just tell, it's hard for anyone. It's like anyone starting a new job. No one's amazing on day one.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good you are. You could be the best fucking accountant in the industry. As soon as you start working at a new company, it's going to take you, a week or so to learn the ropes of how things work in that company. It's no different from being in a band, but yeah, he's really on his way now, and he's a really aggressive frontman, and I think it's kind of what we've been missing for a long
Yeah.
time. I don't think we realized until we had him on stage, but like, yeah, this suits us.
And do you look at that now and you sit back because you kind of get to watch everything? You see everyone out in front of you. You get to see the crowd. You're kind of like, the king sitting on his throne looking out at it. Do you look at that and go, oh, we've got to capture this. We've got to capture that primal energy and aggressiveness for the next record? Have you kind of already started toying around with stuff like that?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, we've thought about that for a long time, where the songs that might not work well on record work well live, and that's kind of it's a difficult thing to kind of get your head around because you want both things to do well,
Yeah.
and it's hard to convey those live songs on CD and vice versa. So it is a challenge. It is a challenge, but when you know what works well live, as long as you can make it sound good on record, then hopefully you've got a recipe for something good.
Yeah, and sometimes it is good too. And I notice you guys do it well, is capture that live energy because something can sound heavy and be heavy, but not necessarily feel aggressive. There's a special thing that I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it because you can hear some bands that just sound great and they're heavy. And maybe it's the imperfections in the recording. Maybe it's not over polishing it too much. Do you feel there is a little bit too much of over polish in metal in general, not just slam, not just deathcore? Do you feel it's almost too perfect to the point it loses that? And I'll throw it back. Slipknot's original aggression on like Iowa and all that, that just felt angry.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it was always going to come to this point because the thing is that metal was always a bit rough around the edges for a long time, and then when production kind of got his act together, and and in like the mid to late 2000s, bands were starting to sound super polished, and everyone was like, "Fuck, is this what metal can sound like?" It can sound as good as pop music, but like have be as extreme as what it is. But that was always going to run its course
Yeah.
because at the end of the day people watch live bands because they, like you were saying before, they like those imperfections,
Hmm.
and it's the same reason why this whole like, the old school death metal revival that's happened at the moment, with bands like Sanguisugabogg and, Frozen Soul, etc.
Yeah.
People, one of the reasons why those bands are doing so well is because people got sick of that kind of stagnant, production, where everything just sounded like so clinical, so, married to the grid. And people wanted a bit of that live kind of energy injected back into records.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, the first two Slipknot albums are obviously huge influences on anyone our age, I would say.
Yeah.
Uh, but the first one, especially for me, is just so it's just so unique the way it sounds and the structures of the songs and everything to do with that album. I think that aggression, that raw aggression, has been missing, but I think it's coming back now, and it's a lot more accepted in the modern metal scene.
Yeah, and I think it just took a long time of like, everyone likes, and we go back to food. People sometimes will like the new restaurant, but then you always go back to your old favorite because it's comforting, and you might not know why, but it is that thing. It's like, how do you capture a circle pit and a mosh pit and put it in a song? That's really
Yeah.
what you got to do with metal. And look, could you imagine like a perfectly polished mosh pit where no one's touching each other? And a dream world for venues. Don't get me wrong; they'd love it if
Yeah.
we all ran in circles and no one touched each other. It'd
Yeah.
be great. But
So some of it we tried.
oh yeah, I've seen it. It's hilarious, and God bless them for trying. But I'm like, if you can figure it out, brother, like everyone's going to love you. Don't think it's going to work for you. But mate, I know you got a couple of interviews lined up today, so I don't want to keep you too long. But coming back down to Australia, before I let you go, and before you say your final words, was there anything memorable from the last two? I know it was very short, so probably not. Probably jet lag was probably the most memorable thing of being down here. But was there anything that stood out, or anything you kind of want to try and do when you come back here in July?
Well, I mean, the shows themselves were amazing because we toured with Archspire. And I think every show was sold out. If they weren't, they were very close. So we can't complain about the shows at all. In terms of like visiting Australia, I mean, I really enjoyed it. For me, it feels like a complete marriage between modern America and Europe.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a complete crossover, really, for me. And it's a really interesting place to visit. Like I said to you before about the people, we get on with the people really well. The biggest surprise for me was when we toured on that tour. It was Archspire, ourselves, and Werewolves.
Mm.
And obviously, we knew Dave Haley, who drums Werewolves from Psychroptic. Who we didn't know was the rest of the guys were in a band called the Berserker. And the Berserker were a massive influence on me and Sean when we started the band.
Oh, there you go.
So for us on the tour, it's like, fucking hell, we're the fucking Berserker dudes. This is so cool. So that was the biggest surprise for us.
It's cool. It's all the little things, mate. That's what keeps memories alive. But, dude, thank you so much. Tickets are still on sale now. They'll be in the link down below. Lyn, it's been a pleasure. Cannot wait to see you down here in July.
Thank you so much, man. Excited
Cheers.
for it.
Cheers, brother. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.